appreciate that. I'm Lieutenant Anthony Sidoti with the Investigation Division of the Colony Police Department. Just a quick layout of how we're gonna go forward today. Town Supervisor Peter Crummey's gonna say a few words, followed by Chief of Police James Gerace. At the end of his presentation, we will have time to take a few questions. So all I would ask is that if you have a question, please raise your hand, say what organization you're with, so we can identify you, and we'll go from there. Anybody have anything for me before we get started? All right, thank you. Supervisor Crummey.
Thank you. Good morning, and thank you for attending today. As you may know, public safety is paramount in the town of Colony. In recent weeks, and which is the subject of today's briefing, 2 incidents have occurred which are connected to the same group of individuals. One incident involved a discharge of firearms between vehicles near the intersection of Frederick Avenue and Central Avenues. The other involved a robbery inside Dick's Sporting Goods. As we know now, both incidents involve many of the same individuals. Due to the swift action of the town residents and our Colony Police Department, felony arrests have been made regarding both incidents. From civilians and town residents, we received valuable information about the descriptions of vehicles, plate numbers, and even observations of actions of the occupants of the fleeing vehicles as well. Today, you will hear from Chief of Police Jay Gerace Jr., who will provide facts and details about the 2 incidents, but also how our town residents worked hand in hand with our police department to identify the individuals, resulting in felony arrests. We celebrate those citizens for working with our law enforcement. Troubling, though, is that some of the individuals who the chief will identify were previously released on felony gun charges prior to committing these felonies in our town. All of us in this room can agree that often there is more than one contributing factor to an incident or event. Well, this is no different in criminal activity. Why do these young defendants display a depraved indifference to human life? Not only to themselves, but to all others. Have our judges been provided the latitude to slow down such individuals after their first felony arrests? I presided for 21 years as a judge in this very room, and I can tell you that a judge should be allowed to consider public safety in determining release status of someone who is rearrested on felony charges. But in the meantime, and as to the town of Colony, crime does not pay. Investigations will be made and conducted, arrests will be made, and felons will be brought to justice. From there, we pray the system doesn't fail public safety. At this time, I would like to call Town of Colony Police Chief Jay Gerace Jr.
Thank you, Supervisor. Good morning, everybody. So, like the Supervisor mentioned, my goal for today is to try and walk you through these 2 cases and tie a thread between them. And I hope you come away with the understanding or the realization that a small group of bad actors who, for whatever reason, insist on committing mayhem throughout the capital region. But before we walk through the first 2 cases, I do want to speak to community policing as the chief of Town and Colony Police Department. So we talk about community policing, we say a lot about it, but what does it actually look like in practice? What does it actually mean? And so in 1829, Sir Robert Peel said this: that the police are the public and the public are the police. Now, we use that quote and we quip about it a little bit, but we use it with our academy recruits. There's a reason we tell them that when they wear this shield and they put on this uniform, we want to make sure that they understand that they're not above the community, that they stand with the community. But what's often missed is the second half of that quote, and I'll say it again, that the public are the police. And what that implies is that there's a shared responsibility for community safety on behalf of the citizens. Healthy communities know this, and I'm proud to say the town of Colony's citizens know this. Colony's communities, well, they call when crime occurs. The town of Colony, our citizens, they cooperate once we respond, and they provide us with information that allows us to apprehend these individuals. So I hope when we're finished with this briefing that you also understand the pride that both Supervisor Crummy and I have for not only for the officers, a lot of whom work these cases tirelessly in the back of the room there, for the hard work that they did, but the pride that we share in the residents and the citizens that also live here. The citizens that stood up and said no. They said no way to violent crime in their town. And with that, I'll get started on walking you through some of these cases. So the first case that we're here to discuss today is going to be the Dick's robbery case. So this occurred on August 24th. It was a Saturday, noon on a Saturday. Most everybody here in the room knows where Dick's is. It's located in our Latham Farms shopping plaza. So we talked about the community and how much overwhelming reports that we got about these cases. I'm going to play for you 2 911 tapes. Just for your awareness, we received over 11 calls from citizens observing these violent acts inside Dick's. So the first one that I'm going to play, I want you to listen close. And what you're going to hear is the chaos unfold. And you're going to hear some bats smashing and the displays crashing. So I'm going to play that.
Back up, guys. 911, what's the address of the emergency? Hello, 911.
Hi, I got people here. I hit so bad that they're reporting good, but cop police here ASAP.
People are getting hit with bats?
They're reporting good. We have a report that just broke out.
How many people are involved in the fight?
There's like 10 people. They're all in here in a run. I can't.
And are they hitting each other with the bats?
Yeah, there's a full-blown rollout.
Is that?
Okay, so that's the first call. So hopefully you got a sense of what was going on inside the store. The next 911 call, and again, this citizen is going to get all the kudos from me as the chief of police, but I want you to listen. This citizen took his duty seriously for community safety, but it's not vigilantism, right? I'll speak about it at the end, but he maintained distance and was able to give us vital information that led to the swift apprehension of one of the first offenders. So take a listen to this.
911, what's the emergency?
Yeah, you guys just had a smash and grab at Dick's Sporting Goods in Latham, New York.
Yeah, we have a call on it.
Yeah, I'm following the car. It's a silver Kia Sedona. You have another follow car after an LHN 8791. That's the spot.
L is in Larry, H is in Henry, L is in
Mary
8791. And what kind of car is that?
That is a white Acura headed southbound on 87. And then the car that did the smash and grab is pulling back, looks like pulling back into the whole brick house and turning around.
So we'll speak more about, if maybe you heard the puzzlement on behalf of that citizen that turning around at the old brick house. I'll get to that and why that's important in a minute. This is a still image taken by our investigators of the aftermath of the scene at Dick's. And I want to take a moment to address the members of the media in the room. I know we've received a number of requests to provide the video of the assault and what took place there. And so I want you to know I thought long and hard about what the right thing to do in that case was. And we believe at the Colony Police Department that we are victim-centered, right? That's our job, is to protect our victims. And so I asked myself as the chief of police, is providing this video so that it lives forever in social media doing right by our victims? And the answer that I came to was no, that it's not. And so I wanted to just address that head on, that the Colony Police Department will not be providing the video of what took place. I'd have to take a hard look at the trauma that would be involved in our victims having to relive this or seeing this over and over again. So I hope you can understand why I made that decision. Okay, so here is our cast of characters. There were 5 actors involved in the violent assault, robbery over sneakers. Right? That's what this was. We're trying to steal sneakers. And so we'll walk through each one individually in a minute, but this is the 5. So it's Kyle Folks and Gotti Jones, Lyric Jones, Kendrick Flynn, and a juvenile who we are not going to identify because of their age. So the first individual, Kyle Folks, you'll see him here, and he's listed up on the screen. You'll have his information provided to you by our PIO. When you heard the citizens say they're turning around, almost puzzled by that, well, that was this individual turning around. He thought so little of his actions and thought so little of our response that he walked into Dick's after the crime, looking for his cell phone that he dropped during the robbery and checking what Lost and Found to see if he could get it back. Again, our citizens pointed out to us, hey, that's your guy right there. And he was swiftly taken into custody by Colony police officers with the help of the citizens on the scene. The next suspect is Gotti Jones. That's this individual here. He has not yet been charged with this case. We plan on charging him tonight. He is currently in custody at the Albany County Correctional Facility on prior gun charges. So I want to take a moment to thank the Albany County District Attorney's Office, who has worked hand in hand with us on this case to ensure justice. Mr. Jones, as most of you are aware, is awaiting sentencing on a prior gun charge out of the town of Colony. And so the Albany County District Attorney's Office provided updated information to the court, and the court swiftly has lodged him in Albany County Jail awaiting these other cases. So he'll be charged tonight. We expect him to charge him tonight. The next person involved, our person of interest, is Kendrick Flynn. So Kendrick Flynn has not yet been charged. We've been looking for Mr. Flynn for 10 days, for over 10 days. So we are asking for the public's assistance in locating him. I have been given some assurances by defense counsel that he plans on turning himself in tonight, but I've been a cop a long time and I'll believe that one when I see it. So if you know, or the citizens know where Mr. Flynn is, let us know, because we're going to come get him. So to circle back and to try to tie the thread to what both the supervisor and I mentioned, these 3 individuals were arrested in connection with a shooting that happened in January of this year in the city of Watervliet. So this is publicly available information taken off of some of your news sites and I believe the Watervliet Police Department's Facebook page. So these 3 were previously charged and they are out on that case. Also, Gotti Jones was a suspect in another case in the town of Colony. In April of this year, our police officers engaged in proactive police enforcement, arrested him for driving under the influence of drugs and also for being in possession of a firearm. Also arrested, so she has been arrested in this particular case, is Lyric Jones. So she was charged with the Dick's robbery also. And her current status as of tonight, or as of today, excuse me, is she's lodged at the Albany County Correctional Facility. She's scheduled for a preliminary hearing in this court tonight. I want to point out, just take a minute, and I don't know if you can see this, but I want to draw your attention to, this is Lyric Jones at the Dick's Sporting Goods. And this is on a social media post by Ngati Jones. And I want to draw everyone's attention to the tagline, took his baby shoes too. That's the indifference to their activity that they showed here. And so if you didn't know, baby Air Jordans were also stolen in the robbery of Dick's. We've arrested a juvenile, same charges. What is noteworthy is this juvenile has been previously charged in a local jurisdiction in Schenectady County with possession of a firearm as well. Okay, so now I want to try and take us to the shots fired incident, or the shooting on August 14th. This is 3:30 p.m. on a Wednesday in the town of Colony at the Anson Memorial Park. If you're not familiar with where the park is, it's just off Central Avenue in our West Albany area of the town, kind of near the KFC. This is a pocket park in the town of Colony. This is where our kids play. This is where families walk their dogs. This is where citizens go to enjoy what the town of Colony offers. So these are the two vehicles involved, and let me back up. So most of you have gotten our news releases, and they were put out on this case that it involved the possible Facebook marketplace dealing of Air Jordan sneakers. I have to be honest, the cop in me didn't buy that at first. But given what we now know of these individuals and the level that they're willing to go to take sneakers at Dick's, I'm kind of leaning towards that perhaps this really was a robbery of sneakers at the Anson Memorial Park. So what you're going to notice, the first vehicle, the gray one up top and the black one at the bottom. So the gray vehicle, the occupant of that vehicle was selling sneakers or going to sell sneakers to the occupants in the black vehicle, I believe. And if I misspoke on which one was selling that, my PIO will correct that for you when we're done. But at some point, a robbery took place where the individuals in the black vehicle pulled a firearm and fired at least one shot at the gray vehicle. And so I'll walk up here. I don't know if you can see it from where you are, but you'll see the sideswipe cannonball run type chase where they were shooting at that vehicle here, and the back window appears to have been blown out by a gunshot. So I want to again go back to our citizens reporting this to us. So the two vehicles or the groups involved did not call the Colony Police here. Who called was our residents that would not stand for this activity on Frederick Avenue. So they reported it. They gave us a partial license plate on that gray vehicle. Our traffic investigators who were working swiftly and quickly were able to figure out what that license plate might be, led Colony police officers to an address on Dowling Road in the town of Colony on that day. And our officers observed occupants get out of the vehicle and go to the rear yard. And I'll tell you why that's important in a moment. The black vehicle that we believe shot at that gray one was discovered a short time after the shooting through our partnership with the Albany Police Department and the Capital Region Crime Analysis Center. So what's interesting here is officers observed not only the broken glass and the gunshot in the vehicle, but those are rusted out gunshots from a prior incident that we aren't sure what incident that was, but this vehicle has been shot in the past. Everybody see that? So this is the shot that was fired at the occupants of the gray vehicle. This is the post where the driver sits. So there's that post kind of by your head. So just think about that. Let that sink in for a second, how close that was to the driver of that vehicle's head. And then the next image I want you to see, if you can see it, is this is where the bullet entered into the headrest. It's the driver headrest of the vehicle and exited here from the headrest. So, how many inches away from a homicide were we in this particular case? So I mentioned that we tracked that gray vehicle, that first vehicle, to Dowling Road. and our officers observed people go to the backyard. We decided that it would be in our best interest to apply for a search warrant for the property at 3B Dowling Road. That was granted. During the search warrant execution in the rear yard, you'll see that bag, and inside that bag is a handgun. This is the gun here. So it's a Smith & Wesson M&P Shield 9mm. It was loaded with 8 rounds of ammunition, and I know we often get questions about where the gun originated. In this particular case, we are aware that this was stolen out of North Carolina. We also executed a search warrant at the interior of 3B Dowling Road, and our investigators recovered over $53,000 in cash, a little over 3 pounds of marijuana. You can see where it was located there in a duffel bag. Now I want to address New York State law and marijuana. This amount of marijuana and packaged in the manner that you see it is legal. It's legal to possess in New York State. However, given the violence, the guns, the money, and the manner of packaging, we have enlisted the help of our federal partners at the DEA to investigate federal drug trafficking charges associated with this case. Now, this is where the case gets interesting. And again, I want to circle back to the level of cooperation we've gotten from our citizens. We recovered a second firearm the next day, so the day after, and I'll explain this to you. So there was a citizen who saw your news broadcast and our social media posts and reported to us, I saw something kind of strange happening on Frederick Avenue. So I followed some vehicles at a distance. You guys might want to know that that black car went down Amboy Drive and threw something out the window. That was interesting to us. So our officers went to Amboy Drive, and in the woods, they located that loaded Taurus 9mm firearm. And so think about this. This is a residential neighborhood on Amboy Drive in the town of Colony. This handgun, you can look at it too, right? So it has the desert color to it. It would look like a toy if a child were to pick that up. And thank God no one did. Thank God this citizen reported this to us, and our officers were able to recover that handgun. And I do just want to keep going back to the fact that our citizens of this town report this stuff to us, and that's why we were able to recover this. This is just an image of some of the evidence recovered in the shooting case thus far. So who have we charged and what are we doing? In the black vehicle charged with robbery for that shooting incident is this gentleman. His name is Colin Campbell. That's him here. So he's been charged with robbery, reckless endangerment, and conspiracy. He has subsequently been released from Albany County Correctional Facility, so he is out. There are 2 other actors that we are looking for associated with that black vehicle, and as we speak, our detectives are trying to track them down. So we believe arrest will be forthcoming on that. But here's where the case gets interesting. About 2 hours after we recovered that firearm on Amboy Drive, we get another call from another citizen of this town who says, hey, there's a guy going through the woods where you guys were just at. That seems odd to me. That individual was the same juvenile that was arrested in the Dix case. That juvenile was attempting, we surmise, was sent there to retrieve that firearm, to recover that firearm. We charged this individual with attempted possession of that Taurus firearm that was discarded the day before involved in the shooting. And that case is still pending. Also gets interesting is he was found in a vehicle that was being driven by Lyric Jones. So again, same individual. She was involved in the robbery at Dick's. She was driving the vehicle that had the young man that was identified as trying to pick up that firearm in the woods. She does not have a valid New York State driver's license. So she has been charged with this particular incident so far with driving without a license. So I stated before that we do have arrests forthcoming. We will report those when we make them. Our detectives are working diligently on that. And before we wrap up with this briefing, I just want to make sure I take the time to hit these takeaways one more time, right? So violent crime will not be tolerated by this town and will not be tolerated by this police department. And a statement that I have up there in number 2, I really believe it. I truly believe that community cooperation, when they're cooperating with the cops, that controls crime. That's what controls crime. And finally, I want to recognize the commitment that our police department, our detectives work round the clock, sometimes for over 24 hours without sleep, attempting to take the ball that was handed off from our citizens and put it into the end zone and bring these suspects to justice. And so with that, both I and the supervisor will be able to take any questions that you have. We just ask that you raise your hand and then identify yourself.
I'm Samantha with the ABC. You talked a couple of times about people that follow them in their car. Do you want citizens to do that? Is that safe for them to do that?
So
Or
that's
so
the question was, do we want citizens following bad actors? And that's a good question. It's a fair question. What we're looking for out of our citizens is to be good witnesses. And the ones that followed in these particular cases did it in an intelligent fashion. They stayed away. They kept their distance. They had no intention of engaging these subjects. But what they did do was provided us with the information that we needed and then got out of the way. And then they let us do our job. Thank you.
My name is Tom Connolly of Spectrum News. I was wondering if there is any evidence that either of these crimes are gang related.
So the question is were these crimes gang related? And what was your first name? Tom. So Tom, it really comes down to what is your definition of a gang? Right? What's your definition of a gang? And if your definition of a gang is a group of individuals that flaunt the system and flaunt the law and commit crimes, then I call them a gang. But do they have a fancy tagline or a fancy name? That I'm not aware of.
What would you define this as organized crime?
The question is do I define it as organized crime? I define it as a crew of bad actors that are willing to just flaunt the law and bring mayhem. That's what I do. That's how I would phrase it. Anybody else?
Tessa with News Channel 13. How are the father and son doing in the Dick's House of Sport incident?
Yeah, so the question is how are the father and son doing? So I have not had personal contact, but our detectives have, and I'm assured that they're recovering. But it's a traumatic incident, right? They were shopping in the store trying to buy sneakers and they were violently attacked. But we are ensuring the care of our victims. And again, I want to circle back. That was the impetus for not releasing the video. We want to make sure we care for the victims. I knew there was a hand over here.
Yes, Michael Hallis, East Highland News. Are you able to go back to the slide with the gunshot through the post of the car?
Yeah, sure. So Mike, you said, right? Mike is asking if we can go back to the post of the gunshot. That one there? Is that the one you're
Yes.
Yep.
Is that a shot that's characteristic of a tourist shot gun and a 9mm round? And can you tell us more about that kind of gun?
So his question is this shot consistent with a tourist gun? So those questions I wouldn't be able to answer. So we're actively working with our forensic partners and our forensic investigators are going to determine that, but I wouldn't be able to answer that for you.
Can you tell us about the tourist at all, or not?
So what specifically? All I can tell you about the tourist firearm. That was
Is it something
recovered.
that you see often on the street? Is it something, why would it be something that's popular on the street? I mean, yes, it sounds like.
So I think really broadly speaking, you're speaking of firearms on the street. And my experience, just to kind of answer your question, is that bad actors will take any firearm. I haven't known them to have a preference for any. Thank you, Doug.
Karina with Lewiston. So was this one also trafficked from North Carolina, or do you know the origins of this one?
So that's a good question. So her question is what is the origins of this one? And the answer to that one is we're still investigating. I don't have that answer yet.
Rose Schneider, Times Union. Is there any indication that in either of these incidents that the parties knew each other, the victims and the suspects?
Excuse me. Let me just drop that. So her question. The question is do the parties know each other? And so that's a good question. Some of that, I'm not going to reveal at this time, but we do believe that some people are familiar with each other. How that is, I would be overstepping what I actually know to be true. So I would prefer to leave that at this time. I'm not prepared to answer that one.
Ashley with CBS 6. A 15-year-old is involved in 2 crimes here, as we just saw. Do you have any message for the community who may be concerned about violence like this?
So her question has to come down to youth violence. And that's a good question, right? Like that's something that the entire Capital District has, we've been talking about this for quite a while. My only answer to the issue of youth violence is that the Colony Police Department's going to do its job. When crimes are committed by no matter the age, we're gonna do what we can do, and that's really the best answer I have. We're gonna do our job, and we're gonna ask our other partners to do theirs.
Will that individual be in family court, or are you guys charging him?
So the question is about what court he's coming into, and the new juvenile justice statutes are confusing enough for courts, confusing enough for the people that are prosecuting them. They're certainly confusing to me. So for the one case, I know he's being prosecuted in family court. For the other case, there's a prosecutor that's trying to determine which court that case is going to go in front of. So that one I can't answer. That would be a question for the district attorney's office.
Following up on that, is, given just the fact that he's been charged now 3 times, is he being held in a juvenile facility, or is he still?
So the question is the juvenile status, and yes, I forgot to mention that he is currently in a juvenile detention facility.
Is that in Albany County?
I don't know which facility it is. All right, thank you, everybody. John, did you have a question?
Yes, I have 2 quick ones.
Sure.
The suspects that were in the black car on Frederick Avenue, and you said that you were seeking them, are those people that you already have in custody, or are they different people?
So John's question is the other individuals that we're seeking in the black vehicle. We do not have them in custody. We're actively tracking them right now. As soon as we get them in custody, we'll reveal their names to you.
Quick question.
I got the last question, okay? Go ahead.
You were saying with the shots fired incident that at first you didn't believe that this was over like a pair of sneakers as it was with the Dick's House 4. Does it still baffle you that both cases, all this crime committed because of shoes?
So her question is, am I baffled by shoes? I am baffled. I am disappointed. Yes. Yeah, I am. I'm baffled like probably all of you are. That people would be that brazen to commit these acts, that they'd be willing to shoot and strike individual people with baseball bats over shoes. Yes, I am baffled by that.
Have you seen an increase
Thank
in
you.
this?
Would somebody be able to run through the whole presentations, that way I could just get a static shot of each shot?
Yeah.
Just hold each shot for like 3 seconds, that should do me.
I can certainly do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you.